Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling a huge question, one that I think a lot of us wrestle with. Can you actually have a deep spiritual life without having to, give up your life? We're going to look to the ancient wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita for a really surprising and, honestly, super practical answer. Okay, let's just dive right in. This is a real conflict for so many people, isn't it? This feeling that if you want to be truly spiritual, you've got to step back. You have to disconnect from your job, your family, your passions, basically everything that makes up your world. But is that sacrifice really the point? Wow. This quote just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? Philosophical suicide. It's this idea that to find meaning, you have to reject the very experience of being alive, that our senses are a trap, our goals are just distractions. But the Gita proposes something totally different, something that finds real integrity not in escaping the world, but in a radical, full-on acceptance of it. When we hear the word spiritual, what's the first image that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's the monk on the mountain, right? Someone who has given it all up for a life of solitude. It's a powerful image for sure, but what if it's based on a complete misunderstanding of what renunciation is all about? And this is where the Gita just flips the whole script. The common myth says you have to renounce your actions, quit your job, leave your family. But the Gita's path, it says, nope, you're missing the point. The real work is to renounce your attachment. It's an internal shift. It's not about what you do, but about changing the motive behind why you do it.
So, this is absolutely crucial. We need a new definition, a more practical one, for what it means to be a spiritual person living in the real world. And the Gita gives us one that doesn't ask us to run for the hills, but actually teaches us how to engage with our lives more skillfully. And here it is. This is the new model. A true sannyasi, a true renunciant, isn't someone who does nothing. Just the opposite. They're defined by their inner state while they're acting. They do their job, they fulfill their duties, but they are not on an emotional roller coaster depending on the outcome. Their peace comes from putting in the effort, not from clutching at the result. And this practice has a name, Nishkama Karma Yoga. It's really the core technique the Gita gives us for living a spiritual life right in the middle of our messy, busy, worldly responsibilities. It's the art of being totally in the world without being mentally trapped by it. So, how does this actually work? Well, you can think of it as a three-step mental process. First, you don't slack off. You engage fully, you do your absolute best. Second, you mentally let go of the results. You offer them up. You start to see yourself more like a caretaker of your work, not the sole owner of its success or failure. And third, you find your real satisfaction in the work itself, in the integrity of your effort. That's what frees you from all the anxiety about the reward. But the Gita is also incredibly realistic. It gets that this is not easy. And it gives a really stark warning against, faking it, against putting on a spiritual show that isn't real on the inside. The text even has a special word for this person, a mithyachari, the pretender, the hypocrite. This is the person who puts on the robes, renounces all their actions, but inside their mind is just churning with desire. And there's a real irony there, right? They claim to have given up their ego, but they've just traded it for a spiritual ego, one that quietly looks down on everyone else. They're only fooling themselves. And this just makes the difference crystal clear. The Gita says it is so much better to be an honest struggler, someone out there in the world doing their best, authentically trying to practice this internal detachment, than to be a pretender hiding on a mountain while their mind is a total mess. Authenticity is everything. This quote really drives it home. The Gita is huge on this idea of following your own nature, your svadharma. Trying to live someone else's life, like playing the part of a monk when that's just not who you are, it's not just a bad idea. The text literally calls it dangerous. Real integrity means living authentically, right here, right now, in your own circumstances. So if this wisdom isn't for the wannabe monk, who is it for? And this, for me, is what makes the Gita so mind-blowingly relevant today. It was never meant for people trying to escape. It was designed for people just like us. I mean, think about this for a second. This deep, profound spiritual teaching wasn't delivered to some hermit in a quiet cave. It was given to Arjuna, who you could call a super householder. He was a warrior, a general, a husband, a leader, and he received this advice right on a battlefield, in the middle of the biggest personal and professional crisis you could possibly imagine. This is a guide for busy, stressed out people engaged in the world. But what about desire, wanting things? Does this path mean we have to become emotionless robots? Absolutely not. The Gita sees desire as a natural part of being human. The body isn't a prison. So instead of a brutal, forceful repression, it suggests something much smarter, cultivating a higher taste, finding a deeper, more meaningful source of joy. And the amazing thing is, when you start connecting with that higher satisfaction, the smaller, less fulfilling cravings just start to lose their grip. They just fall away.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What's the real takeaway here? How do we actually walk this path of engaged spirituality in our own crazy, modern lives?
It really is a journey. You start by just being that honest struggler, not a pretender. From there, you learn to see yourself as a caretaker of your life, not the absolute owner. You start to find that quiet, peaceful center inside yourself, even when things are chaotic outside. And slowly, you begin to redefine what success even means. It becomes about the quality and authenticity of your effort, not just the prize at the end. And that's how you find the sacred, not by leaving your life, but by diving more deeply into it.
And that leaves us with this final, powerful thought to chew on. Maybe the whole point of being alive isn't to just patiently wait for it to be over. Maybe our bodies, our senses, our complicated lives, maybe they aren't a prison we need to escape from, but are instead this precious, incredible instrument. Perhaps we are the very means through which the universe itself gets to experience its own beauty and its own meaning.